Welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast, strategies that help entrepreneurs build reputable and profitable brands. Here's your host, Henry Kaminski Jr.
Everyone, happy Saturday. We're going to do a Saturday edition of the Brand Doctor Podcast with a super special guest, my brother-in-law, Teddy Leo. What is going on, my dude?
What's up?
So real quick, Teddy was going back to college on Thursday. The giant snowstorm comes through, gets stranded at my house for the next 4 days. So it was actually a blessing in disguise, right, Ted? Because you got so much shit done for your business, and as you're putting all this stuff together, I'm like, why don't we just do a podcast about all of this that you got going on? Because, dude, I have to tell you, you are one of the most inspiring young bucks. And I'm not just saying that because you're my brother-in-law. I'm saying it because your hustle and your passion behind what it is that you do is so contagious. It's so infectious. And I don't think I ever told you this before, but it's really inspiring and it's really driving me inside of my business. So I just wanted to give you a huge shout out for that. The second thing I want to ask you is this. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. So you're 20 years old, right? Yeah. So you began a company called Tao Creative, and I'm going to shut up, but I want to ask you, like I ask all my guests, why did you create Tao Creative in the first place?
Came out of when did I start it? I guess 3 years ago now, senior year of high school. I took a marketing class, and our final project was all about we had to create something and present it to our teacher. And at the time, I was all into comics and stuff because I was working with Mike. And if anyone doesn't know, I also work at Aftershock Comics as the assistant or editorial assistant. So I had some background, but for the class, I wanted to create something new, bring comics and bring video games together. Mm-hmm. So I decided to make Tao Creative to help me do that.
Right. So real quick, Ted, I just want to let the audience know the impact. Your position right now at Aftershock Comics. Like, Aftershock Comics is a big deal company. Yeah. Like it goes like Marvel, it goes DC, and then it's like Aftershock, right?
Yeah, it's like Marvel, DC, and then we're in like same category with Vertigo and like Titan, IDW Publishing, pretty much all of like the high level indie publishers are like all together. But so far how we've come out, and we're coming up on our third year or we just passed our third year. We've made like big waves. We made aftershocks, I guess, across the industry. So we're happy where we are right now. Nice.
So I promise I won't interrupt. So continue.
So at Aftershock, I was doing a lot of things, like creating a lot of stuff, but I wanted to create something new. And at the time, like I said before, I was in high school and I was in this marketing class, and my professor didn't really believe that I was going to do it, and it like annoyed me. And then on top of that, my girlfriend at the time broke up with me, so it was like a double whammy of I have to prove two people wrong now. So I ended up working like, oh my God, like ridiculous amount of hours just straight in a row to try to make sure everything I had to present to my professor was ready to go for like our deadline. But he gave us like honestly like 6 months to do this whole project, so it was not hard at all. But at the time, I was freaking out because it was like the first thing I have ever really created. So I made like, storyboards and wrote different things, got my people across the internet to help me create animations and stuff, because it was all about the interactive comic, which we'll get to later on. But it ended with my professor trying to call me out because I missed a lot of school because of like my anxiety and everything back then. So he called me out because he didn't like that I missed school, and he thought like I thought I was a know-it-all. Really, I wanted to be I want to know it all person. I didn't want to be a know-it-all. So he didn't get that really. So he tried to call me out one day to present, and he thought he was going to get me like off my toes so he could give me like a failing grade. And I was like, yeah, okay, hold on. I just thought, like Chloe was going to go. I have to go get my project from the locker. He's like, yeah, go ahead, go get it. So I ran over there, freaking pulled all this stuff out, had a virtual reality headset for him, had a monster, like, poster on the wall and stuff. Blew him away. And he even came up to me and was like, I really wanted to fail you, but, like, I can't. Like, there was nothing. He's like, you really annoyed me throughout this whole semester, but you really showed me that you're one of the best in our class, and, like, I respect that. And now when I go back to school, he actually is pretty, like, cool to me. But, I remember that. I don't want to forget that.
Yeah, you're gonna drop that in the you're kind of a douche, but I get you. I get it. So let me ask you this, Teddy. So you created Tal Creative, and you created this particular comic called Mind Control, and this is a comic that, and I hope I'm not letting the cat out of the bag here, but the comic is what's that?
So I'm trying to leak it out a little bit, so that this is good. We could let a little bit out of it for you.
Okay. So the comic is sort of the reason why you created this Tal Creative is for you to channel, so to speak, this anxiety that you dealt with as a young kid. Yeah. And the best way that you were able to sort of self-soothe this anxiety, because this is really important for those that are listening that may be suffering from anxiety too in their lives. Yeah. And so you found a channel, which was creating this business of this indie comic. And you're channeling that anxiety through the comic to sort of soothe you and sort of help you get through it. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, I would say I had this, I think, fake sort of like false reality of why my anxiety had disappeared like 2 years ago. And to me at the time it was, oh, I have this girlfriend and everything, she's helping me. And then when we broke up, it like panic set in, like, it's going to come back. Like, this isn't good. And I remember one of the first times it came back, I was like annoyed with it so much that I was like, why can you feel good if she's in the picture, but you can't feel good when, it's just you? Mm-hmm. So, like, it was kind of like, you can do it. Yesterday you could do it because she was here, but today you can't. Like, no, like, suck it up. You're going to do it today. Like, you have your whole life. She's not here anymore. You got to figure it out. And then I just picked up a note, literally just a CVS notebook, and I just started writing. And I was just wanted to track in my head how far I actually had come from when I first started with all anxiety and stuff. So I literally started when I was born all the way through, and all the things I remembered all the way till that point in time, because how the script ends, it ends with my character picking up a sketch or a notebook and writing Mind Control on the top and says, like, draft 1. So it was more of like I'm going to use this and this terrible thing that has annoyed me my whole life and frustrated me to create something really awesome. And I think even writing the script was some sort of like therapy, because you could really visually and like read it how far you've come, and you started remembering all the little times and even the pain that you went through, and you could really see, instead of it just being in your head, like on paper, how many pages that was, how many years, so like it really helped get over with that. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. And let's not forget, for those, I can never forget this because, you're part of the family. But I remember when I first started dating your sister, you were like, Jesus, like 10 years old, right? Yeah. And as you grew up, like, weren't you overweight? Like you were like 200 pounds at one point, right? So this was like
243.
Oh my God, 243 pounds. My God. So so I've seen this transformation. Look at you now. Like how much do you weigh now?
Right now, 150, like 5.
Oh my God. So you lost like a person. So
I was down to 122, but that wasn't good. That was way too slow. I had to gain my muscle back, and that was also out of fight and revenge against someone. Because yeah, a lot of stuff is revengeful. I don't know. Maybe I should work on that.
Hey, listen. Whatever gets you motivated, whatever helps you like produce and help you achieve what you want to achieve, like. Do it. And so I can't hate on that. I really can't. I mean, I remember thinking back, when I was telling my dad about Unique Designz, 10 years ago, and he was like, and I'll never forget this. I was like, I think it's about time I need a website for my business. Like I want to make it legitimate. And he looks at me and he's like, why would you do that? Like, what if you get too much work and you like, and I was like, I'll show you, son of a bitch. The next thing I did after I hung up the phone was shovel out $2,000 and get this guy to build my website. And so I get what you're saying, because I felt that before, and I felt that in other areas in my life too. Like, listen, I'll show you, and I'm very vocal with this as well. Like, a lot of what drove the beginning of my business was to prove to my family that I didn't need my rich uncle's money to help me grow my business and build my life. And a lot of it was, I'll show you. And eventually that caught up to me. And I realized, for me, I'm not saying anything about you, but for me, there was a bigger story there. There was a bigger picture there. And for me to just use that I'll show you mentality and sort of that motivation, it wasn't sustainable long term. And I realized that.
I would say even with me, I've seen that, like, it's that whole, like, I'll show you has been taken over with, I need to help other people.
Yeah. And I went through the same thing, Teddy. It was like, let's repurpose our why, right? And look at, all right, that's what we needed to get started. Now let's refine and let's mature, right? Because that's what happened, in my opinion. That's what happened. And now let's look at this. And I'm with you as far as, let's see how many other people that we can impact and help, and let that drive the business. So I want to get into sort of the meat and potatoes of this episode. And, you are an amazing storyteller. And today's episode is the power of storytelling. So I want you to kind of dive into the importance of storytelling and talk about some of the elements in storytelling that really need to be there for you to have a great message or a great brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's funny with story and everything. At first, I don't know, it like just comes naturally to a lot of people. But like, I don't know, Dion, me, I think throughout my whole life, it's just been there, but I didn't realize it. That makes sense. Like, I would always tell stories, and even I would exaggerate stories to make them better. And then every time I would tell them, I'd do it a little bit better, because I would watch people and see how they reacted, and I would change a little bit, tweak a little bit, see how they reacted to that version, then do it again until I found out like the version of the story that people loved the most. Which might be a little twisting, a little fake news, but whatever, But I think with storytelling and everything, it really comes down to with like having your characters connect. And even with brands, I think like Nike does it well, because they make a lot of their commercials isn't dialogue and stuff. It's mostly just cutscenes of people like working hard, Yeah. And I think if you could tell a story with as little like words as possible, like that's what you want to try to like strive for. Even with like when we're writing our comics and everything, we're talking about comics, we try to limit the amount of dialogue and really make the art and the facial expressions to like tell the story for you, because people can like connect with that. But also you want to have your characters to have weaknesses, so your audiences will see that and see themselves in that. Because I think a lot of people want to believe that they see the best in themselves, but I think more people pick all the things that are like wrong about them. So when they see characters like, for instance, like Captain America for me, like bullied and stuff, and he was like this little scrawny kid, but he always like stood up to the bullies and stuff. For me, I always looked at that character as someone I would want to like emulate or like strive to be. You know, Greg, my twin brother, loves Iron Man because he thinks he's like a god, and Iron Man thinks he's awesome. But even Iron Man, he has like anxiety problems and like alcoholism and stuff, and addiction. So I think Marvel does it really well with the whole connect with people where their weaknesses are, because you can find an in through like a wall they've put up. Yeah. You know, like as soon as you can find a little crack in the system and sneak in there, that's when your story is really going to hit them like right where it hurts. And that's what you want to hit them.
Exactly. And so let me sort of unpack that a little bit, because you said a whole bunch of like gold. So one, you mentioned the character of the story needs to connect with the audience. So that tells me that relevancy is extremely important, right? If the character isn't relevant to the audience, then there's no connection there. And then the second thing you said, if I'm correct, you mentioned about vulnerability and how it sort of showcasing that or exposing that is what really brings in the audience and makes the character real.
Yeah, I think if you can make the character real enough that they can see themselves struggling like they are, then it's like you pretty much won, because they're so invested now in the character because they see themselves in there that they'll pretty much do anything, buy the next chapter, read the next issue, because they want to see what happened. To them, they're not buying an issue of Captain America, they're buying an issue of themselves. So it's like pretty much, how am I going to, I have to keep buying that,
That's powerful.
Even if you're a kid, like a little kid struggling, getting bullied at school, but then you go home and you can open up a Captain America comic and he's fighting some bad guys, it might make your day a little bit better, because, you see that in yourself.
And so getting back to Mind Control and getting back into your comic, can you kind of walk us through, without letting the cat out of the bag, so to speak, kind of walk us through what it, like at a high level, what the comic is about?
Yeah. So basically Mind Control is all about, mind control. It's not really. It's all about mental health issues, not just anxiety, but across the board, like all of them. I wrote it specifically that you're following through the main character, Michael, and his story with anxiety, because it's about my life, but, just a little bit tweaked and stuff. But while he's going through his journey, he's also running into people that are struggling with other things and other mental illnesses, or even addiction, and, a lot of issues that people aren't talking about or are scared to talk about for a long time, at least. So the whole story is about, on like a really personal level, Michael's journey, but more wide of him running into people that have all these issues, and all the people that were almost like angels that like helped him get through certain pieces of his life, Yeah. So just it's all about like luck and stuff, I guess, of how people you meet could really shape you in a good way and a bad way. Doesn't matter. But it's really about the whole mental illness and giving someone a connection to see like that pain. Because a lot of people with mental illness, if you break a bone, or if you get cut, if your arm falls off, something, you can see that. But mental illness, you can't see that. So what's good with comics and stuff and art is you can kind of bring that together So I created this character called the Shadow Man that is the living embodiment of anxiety and mental illness and like problems with that. So each character in the story has their own Shadow Man. Really, you find out it's themselves. They just have to overcome it. And anytime the main character or one of the characters that have the problem, like, faces it, a piece of the shadow from their Shadow Man or Shadow Woman falls off, and it reveals like a person. So for a long time, you won't understand who's down there. You just understand like there's someone there. I wonder who that bad guy is. Until the final issue for Michael at least, for when I finally got over my anxiety, is all the shadow drops after he stands up to him and he's just looking at himself. But he's an older version. So as a little kid, he wouldn't recognize his older self. But as an older kid, finally standing up to him, he's just staring at himself like, wow, it was me. I just had to like come over myself and get out of my way. Continue.
Dude, you're giving me goosebumps, bro. Like, I'm not gonna lie. So, a couple things here that I want to point out. I think one of the things you said in the beginning, you mentioned that you bring out the things in this comic that people aren't talking about.
Yeah. And
I think shedding light on that clearly brings you to the top, when it comes to attention and engagement and, sort of the relevancy, because everybody has skeletons, right? And everyone's afraid to talk about them and keeps them in the closet as long as they can. And I can tell you from experience that, when I let the when I let the skeletons out and started to dance with them a little bit, I felt like I had like a new lease on life. And it feels like you're projecting all of this from your real life into this comic. And it's really starting to play out as this whole, how you sort of saw life in your eyes up until 20 years of age. And I think it's just so fascinating how you've been able to articulate that in such a way, in such a creative way, and just having the Shadow Man and connecting the Shadow Man to your own self. And you mentioned also how until someone finally realizes that the biggest reason why they're not accomplishing what they want to accomplish in life is because they're in their own fucking way.
Yeah.
Like, that's when the door opens and the clarity appears and you're like, oh, wow. Like, I didn't realize life could be this good. And like, that's a breath of fresh air, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, even if you think about yesterday, I was showing you the whole score for it, the whole original song. And if you asked me 3 years ago if I would be dealing with someone over in like Eastern Europe to create a score, I'd be like, no, like, I don't even want to call like Domino's Pizza to order a pizza, like that freaks me out. I wouldn't want to Skype someone and try to create something, So like, it's really just you're in your way and you have to move. And the whole comic is really about that, trying to get people out of the way.
That's awesome. And so let's dive into this a little bit deeper, because this is funny. So since you've been home for winter break, we've spent a lot of time together, and I've watched you, and you've been very vocal with me talking about the progress of this comic, and you've been talking to me about like all the different parts of it. So you have your illustrators, you have your composer who literally from scratch created a theme, not a theme song, but like the audio to the actual comic. So there's all these moving pieces, right? And as a 20-year-old, I have to give you props. You've learned to sort of get out of your own way. And at such a young age, you've already said to yourself, I'm not going to be able to do this comic if I'm the one trying to do it all. And so I'm going to hire the illustrator. I'm going to hire the composer. I'm going to so talk to me about that and how that's been so helpful for you to get this project like to where it's at today.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy if you think about like, I don't know, like I'm good at art. I can draw and everything. And, I've played around with GarageBand, but when you are sitting down and trying to create something that needs to be the highest quality at every single step. You need the best people to do it. And once you realize that you might, you're good at art, but you're not the best at it, or, you can make a song, but you're not the best, and you get the people to do the best work, then all of a sudden everything in your life, especially with your company and whatever you're building, goes to like the next level. Like, I'm really good at writing stories and stuff, and I'm very good at getting the team together, and that's why I really like the whole, in comics, it would be the editorial side, When I was little, I always thought I was going to draw, but when you realize that, you're not the best, but that's okay because you can get the best quality and still be a part of something, I think that's really when you like unlock the next level, and you level up really, you move up to the next thing. And at 20, trying to deal with that and learning the amount of people that I've had to fire and all the people I had to hire is, I think the past year I probably fired like 6 different people, and every single one you have to learn something new or a new way to fire them or a new, maybe they didn't work out, but they're really not that bad. Maybe you can use them later, so you don't want to totally burn the bridge. Or some of them you're not only burning the bridge, but you're burning the city, the whole world, whatever planet they're on, so there's no way you're ever working with them ever again. So, I don't know. It's been interesting. It's been challenging, but it's been rewarding.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it's probably worth every freaking day and every minute that you spend on it, because you've literally built this thing from scratch. You're literally building this brand, if you will, of mind control, and you have all of these different moving parts. And man, I have to tell you, I wish I had the experience at 20 that you have today. It's just so impressive. Like, I'm 37, and I would say, it took me, I would say about 3-4 years ago, I finally learned how to, manage a team and manage all these moving parts. And then I realized that I'm not the greatest project manager on the planet. And so I need to have somebody that's really strong in that sense. And so that's why Pam, part of my team, the project manager, Pam, she is like a godsend because she is so on top of it. And so it gives me that breathing room to, do the shit that I love to do, which is podcasting and connecting with my audience and working with my clients one-on-one. Because I was telling a client the other day on a strategy call, it was probably first or second call in the Branding on Demand program for this client. And I said, if I don't have this, meaning the interaction with you and this coaching, this one-on-one interaction with another human being, just kill me, just dig my hole, because I don't know what else I can do. I'm not that type of guy to be the behind the scenes type of guy. And so, that's what kind of fuels me. So, knowing that you are really good at storytelling, like, and writing, right?
Yeah. Right.
That's so powerful.
I was just going to say, even the whole, you say you're not behind the scenes guy. I'm more the behind the scenes guy. Me and my boss always joke about, when one of the comics at Aftershock is successful and people are talking about it and it's, winning best comic of the week, best comic of the year, best comic of, go read this, you have to read this, And at first, I think it took me a while to understand that we were the behind the scenes guys. And my boss, kind of reality checked me with it, because when you're all excited, but no one's giving you, you're like, oh, I worked on that for so many hours. I edited the script, I changed placements, I moved certain things. And then, all the writers and the artists, the real face of the comic, are getting all the, tweets about it and interviews and stuff. And you're sitting there I really worked so hard. I don't get anything. And then I remember my boss coming up to me and be like, you're a behind the scenes guy. You have to remember that they have no book without you. They have no success really without you. But you don't have the time to go do the success because you have to turn around and do the next book. He's like, so, you have to turn around and make sure that the next writer who's going to go on and do all the interviews and stuff has the team in place to go do that. And when he did that, when he said that to me, I was like, okay, I understand it. But then you learn to like love that part, and I think once you accept that, at least for my job, and realize that you can't do everything, then really like that's when everyone wins. Because even when I'm talking with my artists at Tao Creative, or my writers, or like assistant writers and stuff, and colorists and 3D game designs, and wow, I have a lot of different people. But when you're talking to them and you see them get excited about the project, and like, I don't know, it just builds on top of each other because they're excited that they can bring their talents onto it, and I'm always excited. And I think since I was in their spot with creating music sometimes as for fun and drawing and stuff, that I realized how to talk to them and really give over to them and be like, I hired you because in my mind, you're the best. I want you to do it. Here's some of my ideas, but really I want to hear your ideas and show me what you can do. And like, they always get so excited because usually they're like, I have to deal with someone who's like, I'm the best. This is what we're doing. This is what you're going to do. But like, my guys will come to me and be like, I was thinking if we add an animation that like cuts across the screen and then the shadow man comes, through the side. And I'm like, yeah, go do it. Just show it to me. Like, that sounds awesome. And they're like, they get excited. And then all of a sudden, they're sending me stuff in an hour later because they're all excited about it. I think it just helps everyone to get the best product.
Yeah. Listen, I'm a full believer in that. I have to tell you, like, when I motivate my designers and just give them the concept or the client brief and say, here, this is what we're going to use to run with it, just run with it. And they come back, with just amazingness. I say to myself, like, had I tried to micromanage them, they would not have that full creative experience. And as creatives, you have to have that sort of freedom, right, in order to really blossom, right? And so you do what I do, and it's, listen, I hired you because I believe in you, and you're better than me at this. You're the expert here. Just go and do you. And I think that's why you're so far ahead of anyone else that's been doing this for a long time, is because you've actually realized that at such a young age. And it's funny, we're doing this as a Facebook Live right now, and one of the audience members said, I wish I had this self-awareness at 40, and he has it at 20. So, big shout out to Dennis Cullen there who made that little comment. And I was thinking the same thing. So real quick, let's turn the corner a little bit and talk about how you're putting a very cool spin on your particular comic that is really making your stuff stand out from everything else that's out there. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, okay. So basically, comics are great, and they are a great way to tell stories. But I was sitting down while writing the script, and I was trying to figure out, for a long time, I was trying to figure out how do I tell my story about anxiety and everything. And there was always, a TV show, Netflix series, there's a bunch of ideas. But you put it into play, it's a little harder to achieve, when you're 18 sitting in high school. So all of a sudden I started working at Aftershock, so it became this idea with comics. And I always gamed when I was a kid, so I would always play video games and stuff. And I was always into having a twin brother who's into technology and always knows what's happening with technology. I always knew about certain new things that you could add or spin and stuff. So when I was writing the comic, I decided that I was going to do an interactive comic. So the real name of the comic is Mind Control Interactive Comic. And basically that means it blends the parts that you already love about comics, which are, the story and the art and the creativity with that, but also it brings together sound, music, animation, interactive elements that, you can change things, you'll do things that will affect the story or affect the scene, So over the past few months, and really in the recent, I would say 2 weeks ago, we really nailed down what that interactivity was going to be. And it really actually came out of someone being fired because they took so long that it gave me time to think about what we were going to do, and it gave me an opportunity to change the whole direction. So we went into augmented reality. So Pokemon Go, pretty much everyone has heard about that craze. So it's pretty much, if you think about Pokemon Go, but what you would do is point your phone, you would upload like the app, and then point it at the printed version of a comic. When you do that, it will read like pretty much like how a barcode works, but since each page of a comic is super specific, and there's really no comic that are exactly the same because it's all about how big a panel is, how the story is. So it can read a page of a comic like it's a code, and it'll tell the app exactly what file to pull up and bring into augmented reality. So all of a sudden, you'll be sitting there, it'll read that secret code that was pretty much already created when they made comics in the 1900s and stuff. But no one had the technology to create something like that. And it'll read it, and then on your phone will be an animation. So whatever's happening on the page will pop out of the comic and come to life, and you'll be able to do things, and you'll be able to walk around it. So it brings it into the physical space instead of just a 2D laying down on the ground.
Which I want to highlight. I talk about this a lot. When I just want to make sure my thing is plugged in here.
That'd be bad. We just did this whole thing.
Yeah, thank God. Can you imagine? My laptop is about to go dead after this awesome podcast in the middle of it, right? God.
You'd have to run upstairs.
I know. Yeah, we just have to finish it upstairs. Yeah. So I'm laughing. Like, for those that are listening on the podcast, you're not going to be able to appreciate this, but Teddy is in my wife's office, and my wife has purple walls. Yeah, and so it's not the most masculine backdrop for Teddy right now on a Facebook Live. But so I had to put some context to it. But that's why the purple walls are in the background, because he's actually in my wife's office. So anyway, real quick, not to go off track, I want to get back to what we were talking about, and I hope I didn't lose my train of thought. So one of the things that I stress and I sort of preach is that when you include people into the story, so when you dialogue with them, when they become part of the story, that's when the emotions start to bubble. That's when the connection really starts to happen, and that bond between the character and the person watching or reading or listening, whatever, right? That starts to mold. And for you to take comics to the next level with this, you're bringing the reader into the story where they now actually have control over it, which is another powerful point of storytelling. And, in the midst of storytelling, when I do storytelling via email marketing or when I do these podcasts and stuff, I'm always asking questions, because that's the best way you can bring people in. And so, it's very powerful that you're doing this. And I have to tell you, I would have never thought of this in a million years. And for you to be able to do this and actually execute it, it's extremely impressive. It's extremely impressive. So, God, where do we go from here? Like, where are you at right now? Like you showed me yesterday what the composer came up with, for the comic. And I was extremely impressed with what that person developed. And so with all these moving parts, where do you see it all coming together, and when? And, I would love to have our audience, follow back up with you somehow, some way, where maybe they want to get a copy of the comic when it's out, or maybe they want to follow your story. So can you share with us how we can sort of connect with you after this podcast?
Yeah. So as of right now, we're shooting for sometime in the summer release date.
Okay.
But since we're literally creating everything, we're creating the whole business and everything as we go. It's been hard. Yeah, I said hopefully we were going to do it last summer, but things didn't work out because we had to create while we go. So hopefully this summer. It looks like especially this past month of being off of school and everything, a lot of things are coming together fast. So I think that's super. Hopefully, possibly it happens. I don't know. I've said it so much that it's coming out in like this or like a few months from now, and it doesn't. It's like let me down now. But hopefully summer, and we're on social media pretty much. Past few days, we started building that up and trying to think. I just created our Instagram account, so I actually have to look at what did we finally. Oh yeah, it's mindcontrol_comic.
Okay.
So if you want to go follow that, we're in the process of like building some hype over there. And then our Twitter is, if you look up mindcontrol.com, it should come up. mindcontrol_com. But over there, we're trying to build up our audience and our following so you could stay up to date over there.
That's what's up.
And when it published wise, we should be having copies in like a month or so, but they're not really coming out fully. They're more for our dev team to work with. So summer, I would say. I think that's the answer to that. That was a long answer. Summer. Even left. I'm recording myself. Are we live? Do I have this by myself? Am I the brand doctor now? Oh, this might be interesting. June, am I the brand doctor now? This is interesting. Well, I'm the brand doctor now. Welcome. Branding 101. Yeah. Text. Disappeared. We went down. Was it actually to die? That's funny. Mine still says like. Oh, it should be up. I just don't know. It says we're broadcasting, so we might be live. Here, let me check Facebook. Let's see. Facebook. Are we live right now? Oh, here we go. Oh, we are. Dude, we're still live up here. Come up here and finish the podcast. Alright, people. We're trying. Hold on. I just realized, yeah, everyone's like, where's June? We're still live.
We're going to get Camille involved.
Alright, I don't even know, where did it go down? What were we talking about?
Well, we were just wrapping up the show anyway.
Yeah, pretty good.
But, so you guys know how to get in touch with Teddy. We got Canella really fired up in the background.
It's a mess.
Super excited. So, guys, for those of you that want to learn more about, Mind Control and follow Teddy's journey, go check him out on Instagram and Twitter. Teddy, I have to tell you, dude, super impressed with you. And just I appreciate you coming on board and sharing your story and sharing the power of storytelling and how that creates just an amazing connection, with your audience. So, dude.
It was awesome. I have to come back.
Yeah,
We have to do one without it canceling.
So, all right, guys. Sorry for the little technical difficulty, but we made it happen. And real quick, for those of you guys that are following the podcast, the Brand Doctor podcast, if you find it valuable, please share it with a friend or colleague. And if you haven't joined the Brand Doctors Hangout yet on Facebook, go over there to that Facebook group and go check that out. Appreciate all you guys, and I will catch you on the next episode. Later.
You've been listening to the Brand Doctor Podcast with Henry Kaminski Jr. To get your appointment with the doctor, visit Brand Audit at www.uniquedesignz.net.